Everyone, please be welcomed to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We have a sober day. Here, all of you who are out there in cyberspace know that in America there's all kinds of intensities going on. And one of our community members was actually shot and killed in his convenience store as he was being robbed. So we were just talking about this sobering event because, when things are going on and you're reading about it on the internet or the news, whatever, it's like a movie out there. But when, the things that are happening are coming close to you, touch persons whom you know and are dear to you, then it becomes more real. So we should take this opportunity and deepen our devotional service, deepen the meditation of our hearing and chanting and our prayers, not just to those who have lost loved ones, but to everyone in the material world right now. The conditioned souls are experiencing the results of all of the misbehavior that's been going on and for so many lifetimes. And so yes, there's never been a time when the hearing and the chanting and the devotional service has been more needed and will be more effective. As I was just saying to the devotees here, Srila Prabhupada explained to us that as the book distribution increases and the kirtan increases and the festivals increase and the deity worship increases and the numbers of devotees, it will polarize the world. And there will be, a good percentage that become very much against, and there will be a good percentage that will become very much favorable. So it's our duty to find those favorable souls and give them the relief that they deserve. Okay, enough of that. Hare Krishna. Lord Chaitanya came and I was reading this morning in Chaitanya Charitamrita. We did 28 pages, by the way. It was 28 pages. And we were reading how even the Muslim governor, when Lord Chaitanya was traveling to Bengal from Orissa, he had passed through a territory that was governed by a Muslim governor who was a drunkard and a real dangerous person. And he sent a spy because there were so many people following Lord Chaitanya, millions of people following Lord Chaitanya wherever he went. And so the spy went there, and as soon as the spy saw Lord Chaitanya, tears started coming out of his eyes. He started chanting Hare Krishna and dancing in ecstasy, fall down on the ground, and he stood up, and he was a pure devotee, just by looking at Lord Chaitanya. So then he went back to the king, and he reported that this mendicant has come, millions of people are following him, and I think he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. so then the Muslim governor, by the association of that spy, his heart softened, and he sent the spy back to meet the representative of the Orissan king, who was with Lord Chaitanya making all these arrangements for him whenever he went. They had all these arrangements. And so he asked for an audience. He asked for an audience. Come. The Muslim governor wanted to see, Lord Chaitanya. So everyone was all the devotees who were around were just astonished. So then the person who was a representative of the Orissan government, the king, Pratabrutta, he didn't know whether to trust this or not. But then he saw the effect that Lord Chaitanya had on the spy, so he agreed. But he said, you can't bring any weapons, and you can only have 5 people with you. So then the king, imagine, Muslim governor, he dressed up like a Hindu, and he went to see Lord Chaitanya. And as soon as he saw him, he fell down on the ground. Tears came out of his eyes. He started chanting Hare Krishna. And he arranged for everything. He built a special boat for the Lord so that he could sit, in a little house in the middle of the boat. And he surrounded him with all kinds of boats with soldiers to make sure that there were pirates in those days in the rivers. So the effect of this movement, we can't have the same effect exactly as Lord Chaitanya. That's Lord Chaitanya. But because we are following, if we follow Lord Chaitanya strictly and chant Hare Krishna without offense, we'll have this effect to some degree, depending on our level of our advancement. So please, let's take our spiritual lives more seriously and spread this movement to try to give at least some people relief from this Holocaust that's going on. Okay, Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram, Srila Sanatana Goswami's glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is meant to change the world. And it goes like this. Sarva Shabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vekaika Sattvala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidvandodidaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Marika Bando Matsangin, Madgudo Man Mahadana, Man Nistaraga Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu Sadhutadayin Adini Chotatakada Hanamun Chakadachin Mam Premna Rit Katayaspuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice through pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
So here we are in the 9th canto. We've reached the 6th chapter. And the 9th canto kind of consolidates a lot of things that have been talked about in the text of the Bhagavatam over 8 cantos, and to prepare us for Krishna's appearance in the 10th canto. So some of it is explaining the history of the personalities, the descendants of the Manus that lead up, and the dynasties that lead to the appearance of Krishna, and what happens with some of them. There's going to be some very heavy pastimes to try to convince us to give up sensual life, to say the least. And Parashuram's going to come and explain just how, heavy, life can become in this material world. So now we've reached text 11, and we're hearing about the descendants of the Manus. Having been instructed by the great and learned Brahmana Vishishta, who discoursed about the absolute truth, Maharaj Ikshvaku became renounced. By following the principles for a yogi, he certainly achieved the supreme perfection after giving up his material body.
Text 9.
No, we're text 10.
I saved text 9 last night.
Vakukshi ad reg vital. Oh. I'm telling you, this guy's turning into a professional fact checker. Thank you. Okay, so now let's be reminded of what was happening here. Oh yes, Vakukshi. He offered remnants of flesh to King Ikshwaku for a sacrifice, but he made the mistake of, he got too hungry and he ate a rabbit. So it was contaminated. Okay, text 9. When King Ikshwaku, thus informed by Vishishta, understood what his son Vikukshi had done, he was extremely angry. Thus he ordered Vikukshi to leave the country because Vikukshi had violated the regulated principles. Text 10. Having been instructed by the great and learned Brahmana Vishishta, who discoursed about the absolute truth, Maharaj Ikshwaku became renounced. By following the principles for a yogi, he certainly achieved the supreme perfection after giving up his material body. By the way, there's about 1,300 personalities mentioned in the Bhagavatam, 1,300 approximately. And out of those, only between 35 and 40 are actually mentioned that they went back to Godhead. Although many others did, but that's how rare it is to go back to Godhead. And here we hear how Ikshwaku achieved supreme perfection after giving up his material body. Text 11. After his father's disappearance, Vikukshi returned to the country and thus became the king, ruling the planet Earth and performing various sacrifices to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vikukshi later became celebrated as Shashada. So this is another example of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and why the demigods sometimes pray to take birth in the Kali Yuga on the earth after Lord Chaitanya appeared, so that they can get liberation so easily. That's us, by the way, or at least potentially. Text 12. The son of Shashada was Puranjaya, who was also known as Indravaha and sometime as Katuksa. Please hear from me how he received different names for different activities. Text 13. Formerly there was a devastating war between the demigods and the demons. The demigods, having been defeated, accepted Puranjaya as their assistant and then conquered the demons. Thereafter this hero is known as Puranjaya, he who conquered the residents of the demons. Text 14. Puranjaya agreed to kill all the demons on the condition that Indra would be his carrier. Whoa. Whoa. Because of pride, Indra could not accept this proposal. But later, by the order of the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, Indra did accept it and became a great bull carrier for Puranjaya. Huh? Text 15 and 16. Well protected by armor and desiring to fight, Puranjaya took up a transcendental bow and very sharp arrows, and while being highly praised by the demigods, he got on the back of the bull, Indra, and sat on its hump. Thus he is known as Kakusta. Being empowered by Lord Vishnu, who is the super soul and supreme person, Puranjaya sat on the great bull and is therefore known as Indravaha. Surrounded by the demigods, he attacked the residents of the demons in the west. Text 17. There was a fierce battle between the demons and Puranjaya. Indeed, it was so fierce that when one hears about it, one's hairs stand on end. All the demons bold enough to come before Puranjaya were immediately sent to the residence of Yamaraj by his arrows. Text 18. To save themselves from the blazing arrows of Indravaha, which resembled the flames of devastation at the end of the millennium, the demons who remained when the rest of their army was killed fled very quickly to their respective homes. Text 19. After conquering the enemy, the saintly king Puranjaya gave everything, including the enemy's riches and wives, to Indra, who carries a thunderbolt. For this he is celebrated as Puranjaya. Thus Puranjaya is known by different names because of his different activities. Text 20. The son of Puranjaya was known as Anena. Anena's son was Prithu, and Prithu's son was Vishwagandhi. Vishwagandhi's son was Chandra, and Chandra's son was Yuvanaswa. Text 21. The son of Yuvanashwa was Shravasta, who constructed a township known as Shavastipuri. The son of Shravasta was Brihadashwa, and his son was Kuvalayashwa. In this way the dynasty increased. Text 22. To satisfy the sage Utkanta, the greatly powerful Kuvalayashwa killed a demon named Dandu. He did this with the assistance of his 21,000 sons. Text 23 and 24. O Maharaj Parikshit, for this reason Kuvalayashwa is celebrated as Dandumara, the killer of Dandu. All but 3 of his sons, however, were burned to ashes by the fire emanating from Dandu's mouth. The remaining sons were Dridashwa, Kapilashwa, and Bhadrashwa. From Dridashwa came a son named Haryashwa, whose son is celebrated as Nikumba. 25. The son of Nikumba was Bahulashwa. The son of Bahulashwa was Krishashwa. The son of Krishashwa was Senajit, and the son of Senajit was Yuvanashwa. Yuvanashwa had no sons, and thus he retired from family life and went to the forest. Text 26. Although Yuvanashwa went into the forest with his 100 wives, all of them were very morose. The sages in the forest, however, being very kind to the king, began very carefully and attentively performing an Indra Yagya so that the king might have a son. Purport. One may enter the Vanaprastha order of life with his wife, but the Vanaprastha order means complete retirement from household life. Although King Yuvanashwa retired from family life, he and his wives were always morose because they had no son. Text 27. Being thirsty one night, the king entered the arena of sacrifice, and when he saw all the Brahmanas lying down, he personally drank the sanctified water meant to be drunk by his wife. Oops. Oops. Purport. Yagyas performed by Brahmanas according to the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies are so potent that the sanctifying of water by Vedic mantras can bring about the desired result. In this instance, the Brahmanas sanctified the water so that the king's wife might drink it in the yagya, but by providence, the king himself went there at night being thirsty, and being thirsty drank the water. Text 28. When the Brahmanas got up from bed and saw the water pot empty, they inquired who had done this work of drinking the water meant for begetting a child. 29. When the Brahmanas came to understand that the king, inspired by the supreme controller, had drunk the water, they all exclaimed, "Alas! The power of providence is real power. No one can counteract the power of the Supreme." In this way they offered their respectful obeisances unto the Lord. Text 30. Thereafter, in due course of time, a son with all the good symptoms of a powerful king came forth from the lower right side of King Yuvanashwa's abdomen. Text 31. The baby cried so much for breast milk that all the Brahmanas were very unhappy. Who will take care of this baby? They said. Then Indra, who was worshipped in the yajna, came and solaced the baby. Do not cry, Indra said. Then Indra put his index finger in the baby's mouth and said, you may drink me. Text 32. Because Yuvanashwa, the father of the baby, was blessed by the Brahmanas, he did not fall a victim to death. After this incident, he performed severe austerities and achieved perfection on that very spot. Text 33, 34. Mandata, the son of Yuvanashwa, this Mandata is a very famous person. The son of Yuvanashwa was the cause of fear for Ravana and other thieves and rogues who caused anxiety. O King Parikshit, because they feared him, the son of Yuvanashwa was known as Tradasasu. This name was given by King Indra. By the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Yuvanashwa was so powerful that when he became emperor, he ruled the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, without any second ruler. Texts 35 and 36. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not different from the auspicious aspects of great sacrifices, such as the ingredients of the sacrifice, the chanting of Vedic hymns, the regulative principles, the performer, the priests, the result of the sacrifice, the arena of the sacrifice, and the time of the sacrifice. Knowing the principles of self-realization, Mandata worshipped that transcendentally situated Supreme Lord, Supreme Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, who comprises all the demigods. He also gave immense charity to the Brahmanas, and thus he performed yajnas to worship the Lord. Text 37. All places from where the sun rises on the horizon, shining brilliantly to where the sun sets, are known as the possession of the celebrated Mandata, the son of Yuvanashwa. Text 38. Mandata begot 3 sons in the womb of Bindumati, the daughter of Shashabindu. These sons were Purukutsa, Ambarish, Muchukunda, and a great mystic yogi, and Muchukunda, a great mystic yogi. These 3 brothers had 50 sisters who all accepted the great sage Saubhari as their husband. Texts 39 and 40. Saubhari Rishi, here we go. Saubhari Rishi was engaged in austerity deep in the water of the river Yamuna when he saw a pair of fish engaged in sexual affairs. Thus he perceived the pleasure of sex life, and induced by this desire, he went to King Mandata and begged for one of the king's daughters. In response to this request, the king said, O Brahmana, any of my daughters may accept any husband according to her personal selection. Purport. This is the beginning of the story of Saubhari Rishi. According to Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, Mandata was the king of Mathura, and Saubhari Rishi was engaged in austerity while submerged deep within the river Yamuna. When the Rishi felt sexual desire, he emerged from the water and went to King Mandata to ask that one of the king's daughters become his wife. Text 41 and 42. Saubhari Muni thought, I am now feeble because of old age. My hair has become gray, my skin is slack, and my head always trembles. Besides, I am a yogi, therefore women do not like me. Since the king has thus rejected me, Haribol Maharaj, Hare Krishna. Since the king has rejected me, I shall reform my body in such a way as to be desirable even to celestial women. What to speak of the daughters of worldly kings? Text 43. Thereafter, when Saubhari Muni became quite a young and beautiful person, the messenger of the palace took him inside the residential quarters of the princesses, which were extremely opulent. All 50 princesses then accepted him as their husband, although he was only one man. Text 44. Thereafter the princesses, being attracted by Saubhari Muni, gave up their sisterly relationship and quarreled among themselves. Each one of them contending, "This man is just suitable for me and not for you." In this way there ensued a great disagreement. This sounds familiar. 45 and 46. Because Saubhari Muni was expert in chanting mantras perfectly, his severe austerities resulted in an opulent home with garments, ornaments, properly dressed and decorated maidservants and manservants, and varieties of parks with clear water lakes and gardens. In the gardens, fragrant with varieties of flowers, birds chirped and bees hummed, surrounded by professional singers. Saubhari Muni's home was amply provided with valuable beds, seats, ornaments, and arrangements for bathing, and there were varieties of sandalwood creams, flower garlands, and palatable dishes. Thus, surrounded by opulent paraphernalia, the Muni engaged in family affairs with his numerous wives. Purport. Saubhari Rishi was a great yogi. Yogic perfection makes available 8 material opulences: anima, lagima, mahima, prapti, prakamya, ishitva, vashitva, and kama vasayita. Saubhari Muni exhibited super excellence in material enjoyment by dint of his yogic perfection. The word Bauricha means expert in chanting mantras. As material opulence can be achieved by ordinary material means, it can also be achieved by subtle means through mantras. By chanting mantras, Saubhari Muni arranged for material opulence, but this was not perfection in life. As will be seen, Saubhari Muni became very dissatisfied with material opulence, and thus left everything and re-entered the forest in the Vanaprastha order and achieved final success. Those who are not Atma-tatvavit, who do not know the spiritual value of life, can be satisfied with external material opulences. But those who are Atma-tatvavit are not inspired by material opulence. This is the instruction we can derive from the life and activities of Saubhari Muni. Text 47. Mandata, the king of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, was struck with wonder when he saw the household opulence of Saubhari Muni. Thus he gave up his false prestige in his position as emperor of the world. Purport. Everyone is proud of his own position, but here was an astounding experience in which the emperor of the entire world felt himself defeated in all details of material happiness by the opulence of Saubhari Muni. Text 48. In this way, Saubhari Muni enjoyed sense gratification in the material world, but he was not at all satisfied. Just as a fire never ceases blazing if constantly supplied with drops of fat. Purport. Material desire is just like a blazing fire. If a fire is continually supplied with drops of fat, the fire will increase more and more and never be extinguished. Therefore, the policy of trying to satisfy material desires by catering to one's material demands will never be successful. In modern civilization, everyone is engaged in economic development, which is another way of constantly dropping fat into the material fire. The Western countries have reached the summit of material civilization, but people are still dissatisfied. Real satisfaction is Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 5:29, where Krishna says, Bhoktadam yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richjati. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. One must therefore take to Krishna consciousness and advance in Krishna consciousness by properly following the regulative principles. Then one can attain an eternal blissful life in peace and knowledge. Why not? Why not? You got a better idea? I didn't think so. Text 49, so intelligent. Text 49. Thereafter one day, while Saubhari Muni who was expert in chanting mantras, was sitting in a secluded place, he thought to himself about the cause of his fall down, which was simply that he had associated himself with the sexual affairs of the fish. Purport. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that Saubhari Muni had fallen from his austerity because of a Vaishnava aparad. The history is that when Garuda wanted to eat fish, Saubhari Muni unnecessarily gave the fish shelter under his care. Because Garuda's plan for eating were disappointed, Saubhari Muni certainly committed a great offense to a Vaishnava. Ooh, that's far out. Because of this Vaishnava aparad, an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, Saubhari Muni fell from his exalted position of mystic tapasya. One should not, therefore, impede the activities of a Vaishnava. This is the lesson we must learn from this incident concerning Saubhari Muni. Text 50. Alas, while practicing austerity, even within the depths of the water, and while observing all the rules and regulations practiced by saintly persons, I lost the results of my long austerities simply by association with the sexual affairs of fish. Everyone should observe this fall down and learn from it. Text 51. A person desiring liberation from material bondage must give up the association of persons interested in sex life and should not employ his senses externally in seeing, hearing, talking, walking, and so on. One should always stay in a secluded place, completely fixing his mind at the lotus feet of the unlimited personality of Godhead. And if one wants any association at all, he should associate with persons similarly engaged. Ashram life ki jai. Grihastha life ki jai. That's not Griyamedi. Grihastri life is different than Griyamedi life. Right? Jai. Purport. Saubhari Muni, giving conclusions derived from his practical experience, instructs us that persons interested in crossing to the other side of the material ocean must give up the association of persons interested in sex life and accumulating money. This is also advised by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Niskinchanasya bhagavad bhajano mukhasya param padam jigamashor bhavasagarasya sandarshanam vishahinam atayoshitam cha ha hanta hanta vishabhakshanato pisadu. Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka 8:27. Alas, for a person seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification and seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly. One who desires complete freedom from material bondage can engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. He must not associate with Vishayi, materialistic persons, or those interested in sex life. Every materialist is interested in sex. Thus, in plain language, it is advised that an exalted saintly person avoid the association of those who are materially inclined. Srila Narottam Das Thakur also recommends that one engage in the service of the acharyas, and if one wants to live in association, he must live in the association of devotees. Tan Dera Charana Sevi Bhakti Vasanivas. The Krishna consciousness movement is creating many centers just to create devotees, so that by associating with the members of such a center, people will automatically become uninterested in material affairs. Although this is an ambitious proposal, this association is proving effective by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By gradually associating with the members of the Krishna consciousness movement, simply by taking prasad and taking part in chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, ordinary persons are being considerably elevated. Saubhari Muni regrets that he had bad association, even in the deepest part of the water. Because of the bad association of the sexually engaged fish, he fell down. A secluded place is also not secure unless there is good association. Bhakti Yoga Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Text 52. In the beginning, I was alone and engaged in performing the austerities of mystic yoga. But later, because of the association of fish engaged in sex, I desired to marry. Then I became the husband of 50 wives, and in each of them I begot 100 sons. Whoa! And thus my family increased to 5,000 members. By the influence of the modes of material nature, I became fallen and thought that I would be happy in material life. Thus there is no end to my material desires for enjoyment in this life and the next. Text 53. In this way he passed his life in household affairs for some time, but then he became detached from material enjoyment. To renounce material association, he accepted the Vanaprastha order and went to the forest. His devoted wives followed him, for they had no shelter other than their husbands. 54. When Saubhari Muni, who was quite conversant with the self, went to the forest, he performed severe penances. In this way, in the fire at the time of death, he ultimately engaged himself in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. At the time of death, fire burns the gross body, and if there is no more desire for material enjoyment, the subtle body is also ended. In this way, a pure soul remains. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Tyaktva Deham Punar Janma Naiti. If one is free from the bondage of both the gross and subtle material bodies and remains a pure soul, he returns home, back to Godhead, to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Tyaktva Punar Janma Naiti Mam Eti. He goes back home, back to Godhead. Thus it appears that Saubhari Muni attained that perfect stage. Text 55. O Maharaj Parikshit, by observing their husband progressing in spiritual existence, Saubhari Muni's wives were also able to enter the spiritual world by his spiritual power. Just as the flames of a fire cease when the fire is extinguished. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:32, Striyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras tebiyanti padam gatim. Women are not considered very powerful in following spiritual principles, but if a woman is fortunate enough to get a suitable husband who is spiritually advanced, and if she is always engaged in his service, and if she always engages in his service, she also gets the same benefit as her husband. Here it is clearly said that the wives of Saubhari Muni also entered the spiritual world by the influence of their husband. They were unfit, but because they were faithful followers of their husband, they also entered the spiritual world with him. Thus a woman should be a faithful servant of her husband, and if the husband is spiritually advanced, the woman will automatically get the opportunity to enter the spiritual world. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 6th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Downfall of Saubhari Muni. So like I said, 9th canto, it's just reminding us of all the different things we have to avoid as well as the things we have to do in order to attain Krishna's association. So how we respond to it, that's the key. That's the test, how we respond. Chapter 7, the descendants of King Mandata. In this chapter, the descendants of King Mandata are described. And in this connection, the histories of Purukutsa and Harishchandra are also given. The most prominent son of Mandata was Ambarish. His son was Yavanashva, and Yavanashva's son was Harita. These three personalities were the best in the dynasty of Mandata. Purukutsa, another son of Mandata, married the sister of the snakes, Sarpagana, named Narmada. The son of Purukutsa was Trasadasyu, whose son was Anaranya. Anaranya's son was Harashva. Haryashva's son was Praruna. Praruna's son was Tribandana, and Tribandana's son was Satyavrata, also known as Trishanku. Now you can get an idea of how hard it is to do the audiobook in the morning, and you have to say everything perfectly. You can't miss. And this morning we were doing these purports with all kinds of far-out Bengali names and old names that no longer exist, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur put them all together, and very hard to read, very hard to read. So I need a little love, Hare Krishna, from my loved ones. Okay. The son of Purukutsa was Trasadasyu, whose son was Anaranya. Anaranya's son was Haryashva. Haryashva's son was Praruna. Praruna's son was Tribandana, and Tribandana's son was Satyavrata, also known as Trishanku. When Trishanku kidnapped the daughter of a Brahmana, his father cursed him for this sinful act, and Trishanku became a Chandala, worse than a Shudra. Later, by the influence of Vishwamrita, he was brought to the heavenly planets, but by the influence of the demigods, he fell back downward. He was stopped in his fall, however, by the influence of Vishwamrita. The son of Trishanku was Harishchandra. Harishchandra once performed a Rajasuya Yajna, but Vishwamrita cunningly took all of Harishchandra's possessions as a Dakshina contribution and chastised Harishchandra in various ways. Because of this, a quarrel arose between Vishwamrita and Vashishta. I mean, let's get out of this material world. It doesn't make a difference where you go. Vashishta, Vishwamrita, these are the highest sages, and they're still quarreling with one another. Right? You can't escape it in the material world. Abrahma Babalal came Punarabhata Norjana Mamupeta Tukontya Punarjanmana Vijite. Krishna says in the Gita, the topmost planet to the bottom. It's all places of suffering. Okay. Harishchandra had no sons, but on the advice of Narada, he worshipped Varuna, and in this way got a son named Rohita. Harishchandra promised that Rohita would be used to perform a Varuna Yagya. Varuna reminded Harishchandra repeatedly about this Yagya, but the king, because of affection for his son, gave various arguments to avoid sacrificing him. Thus time passed, and gradually the son grew up. To safeguard his life, the boy then took bow and arrows in hand and went to the forest. Meanwhile, at home, Harishchandra suffered from dropsy because of an attack from Varuna. When Rohita received the news that his father was suffering, he wanted to return to the capital, but King Indra prevented him from doing so. It's like what? It's like a mess. This material world is a mess, top to bottom. Following the instructions of Indra, Rohita lived in the forest for 6 years and then returned home. Rohita purchased Shunaheshpa, the second son of Ajigartha, and gave him to his father, Harishchandra, as the sacrificial animal. In this way, the sacrifice was performed. Varuna and the other demigods were pacified, and Harishchandra was freed from disease. In this sacrifice, Vishwamrita was the Hota priest, Jamadagni was the Advaryu, Vishishta the Brahma, and Ayasha was the Udgata. King Indra, being very satisfied by the sacrifice, gave Harishchandra a golden chariot, and Vishwamrita gave him transcendental knowledge. Thus Shukadev Goswami describes how Harishchandra achieved perfection. Unbelievable. What the trouble you want to take. Lord Chaitanya says, chant Hare Krishna and go back home back to Godhead. Haribol. Hare Krishna. Text 1. Shukadev Goswami said, the most prominent among the sons of Mandata was he who is celebrated as Ambarish. Ambarish was accepted as son by his grandfather, Yuvanashva. Ambarish's son was Yauvanashva, and Yauvanashva's son was Harita. In Mandata's dynasty, Ambarisha, Harita, and Yauvanashva were very prominent. Text 2. The serpent brothers of Narmada gave Narmada to Purukutta. Being sent by Vasuki, she took Purukutta to the lower region of the universe. Purport. Before describing the descendants of Purukutta, the son of Mandata, Shukadev Goswami first describes how Purukutta was married to Narmada, who was induced to take him to the lower region of the universe. Text 3. There in Rasatala, the lower region of the universe, Purukutta, being empowered by Lord Vishnu, was able to kill all the Gandharvas who deserved to be killed. Purukutta received the benediction from the serpents that anyone who remembers this history of his being brought by Narmada to the lower region of the universe will be assured of safety from the attack of snakes. Or you can do the Govardhan Yagya, which is a lot easier. Govardhan Puja. Text 4. The son of Purukutta was Trasadasyu, who was the father of Anaranya. Anaranya's son was Haryashva, the father of Praruna. Praruna was the father of Tribandana. Text 5 and 6. The son of Tribandana was Satyavrata, who was celebrated by the name Trishanku, because he kidnapped the daughter of a Brahmana when she was being married. His father cursed him to become a Chandala, lower than a Shudra. Thereafter, by the influence of Vishwamrita, He went to the higher planetary system, the heavenly planets, in his material body. But because of the prowess of the demigods, he fell back downward. Nonetheless, by the power of Vishwamrita, he did not fall all the way down. Even today, he can be seen hanging in the sky, head downward. When I was editing Shiva Maharaj's book, he did a lot of Navabhaj Mahima. He did a lot of research, and he found one detail in the history of the Govardhan Puja, that right at the end, when Indra tried everything to destroy Braj, he decided, that's it, I'm going myself with my thunderbolts, that's it. So he came roaring down, with the thunderbolt, and Krishna froze him in the air, like this. And he was stuck there, he couldn't move. It was like Krishna's mystic potency. He just stuck there. And then while he was in that situation, Krishna revealed to him who he was. And then Indra began to repent. That's when he got the realization. Okay. It is now exactly 7:30, so I'm going to stop the reading. It was very interesting. All the things that go on in the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. Everybody cursing everybody else, fighting with everybody else, having sex with everybody else, and it's just the material world. This is the ultimate preparation. If you can pass through this canto, then you can get to Goloka Vrindavan. You get through this canto and accept it for what it is, and stop being attached to this material world, then you can go to Goloka Vrindavan. And then you can be happy forever, unlimitedly, without any of these interferences. Okay, I'll stop there. Hare Krishna. Tamal Gopal, you got questions and new stories to tell, and you got Nishinga on your chest? Oh, okay. I won't pressure you. Pretty stunning, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, Bhaktidak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just have a quick question. In that last verse we just read, it said that, was it Satyavrata, also Trishanka, he fell out of the heavenly planets by the prowess of the demigods. Does that mean, is that because the demigods, they're trying to maintain their posts and things?
No, what it meant was, he went there in his material, his body. He didn't change his body. He went there in his earthly body. And the demigod said, "Wait a second, this is against the rules. You can't come in." It's kind of like the, what do they call that? The border patrol, the border. In the UK, they call it the border force. Something like that.
Okay.
You can't come here like that. No, go back down. Got to be qualified. Whatever we do, we've got to be qualified. If you want to go back to Godhead, you've got to be qualified. The qualification is simply one thing. What it is. What's the qualification?
Let go of material and desires.
That's it. You got it right. You nailed it. You nailed it. You have to give up material desires and replace them with the desires for being with Krishna, for wanting to be with Krishna, to wanting to play with Krishna, dance with Krishna, be with Krishna, eat with Krishna, and serve Krishna mainly. Who else? What else? this is a tough section for the sages to get questions about.
I could say a comment on that just point. That,
Please.
That point you just made, it was talking about when at the time of death, the gross body is burned by fire, but then also when one is free from the desires for sense gratification or material things, the subtle body is also burned, revealing the pure soul.
Yeah.
That was really nice.
Yeah. 107 Fahrenheit. 107 Fahrenheit and the material body is finished. Simple as that.
Thank you for this great reading. I'd just like to point out something that really had an impression on me, and that is that material enjoyment and material desires are like a fire that grow, and as you continue to gain more, the fire continues to burn and grow.
Grow,
and
what, meaning what? When you add drops of fat. So the analogy is that the drop of fat is desire for sense gratification and the material things that you get to try to put out that fire. They're like drops of fat.
Thank you.
And they just keep, the fire keeps burning. It never puts out the fire. Yes, Dr. Damodar has something for us.
Maharaj, here on the previous chapter 6, text 49, in the purport it's mentioned that Garuda he could not eat the fish, and that was offense to the Vaishnava, and the final line mention is one should not therefore impede the activities of a Vaishnava. So this line is like direct instruction. I'm wondering how whenever these kind of instruction come, how should we take him? Because first of all, we don't know who is Vaishnava and who is pretending to be Vaishnava. We are not in that stage to identify someone, and just if we see something going on which whatever with our material vision is not proper, so we should not say anything, we should not do anything, just keep it to ourselves. So how to take these kind of instructions?
Well, Srila Prabhupada answered this question. This is a very interesting question, by the way. And, in order to actually know what to do, you have to be qualified yourself. And if you're not qualified yourself, then the safe path is to offer respect to everybody, everyone, and not impede anyone from doing anything. That's the safe path. But when you become qualified and your vision can see what is what, and then you can enter into that platform and consciously not impede a Vaishnava from doing devotional service or doing even what they want to do. It's not an odd, it's a, Prabhupada also commented on this, that Garuda he's a bird. He's a great Vaishnava, but he's in a bird's body, and the birds, they eat, snakes and fish, so he's not a vegetarian, but he's a great soul, and he's a carrier of Vishnu. So, just like Indra is the carrier, and the, what's the word of the name of the elephant? Ujjashava? What? Huh? Airavata. Yeah. Ucheshwara, that's the horse that came out of the ocean of milk and the churning of the ocean of milk. And I think Bali took him. It was a beautiful horse. He wanted him. Remember, Vishnu said, whatever they want. Don't, yeah. Because when you start impeding people from what they want, even if you're not on that level, to distinguish who's Vaishnava and who's not, and who not to impede and who to impede, you can get into a lot of trouble. You start impeding people from what they want, and you get what? 2019 America, and Europe, and Hong Kong, and etc., etc. Just everybody fighting with one another like I heard this gross result or reaction to one of these mass shootings. Some politician said, "This is the price we pay for our freedom." Can you imagine the mentality? This is the price that we pay for our freedom. It's the grossest ignorance that you can imagine. You can't even imagine that someone of that mentality can be a leader of human society. And there's more than one of them. Therefore, you know what the moral is? Count your lucky stars. Grab a hold of gratitude and just hold on on the feeling of gratitude for what we have, that we can even see these things. If a highly elected official can make that kind of comment, and just follow Lord Chaitanya, follow the associates of Lord Chaitanya, follow Srila Prabhupada, follow the standard process that Prabhupada gave us to purify our hearts and to become qualified to be able to see all these things ourselves and get intelligence from within the heart from Krishna, what to do and what not to do in order to go back to Him. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. With affection, when we hear about the 10th, now we're going to come to the 10th canto, and now all of this stuff is meant to make us eligible to hear about Krishna and then get affection for Krishna, because we'll see how He protects everyone, and how nobody can touch a hair of his head, When at the Battle of Kurukshetra, right at the end, it says in Mahabharata, when it came time for them to get off the chariot for the last time after the battle was finished, Arjuna was so worshipful to Krishna. He said, "My Lord, you go first." And Krishna said, "Arjuna, no, you go first." And then Arjuna, out of devotion, he insisted, "Lord, please, you go first." And Krishna looked at him and he said, "Get off the chariot." And then what happened? As soon as Krishna would put one foot off, as soon as his other foot went off, the chariot burst into dust. Just, and then Arjuna said, "Oh." Actually, Krishna did it. Because, he was in the battle. When you're right in the middle of the battle, you don't think those things. You just do the needful to get the thing done, He's serving Krishna. But, while he was shooting his arrows and remembering the mantras for these celestial weapons, he's not, he doesn't have a picture. Of course, he had Krishna sitting with a chariot with him, so special situation. But still, you have to concentrate on what you're doing, to do that, to be one of only the last maybe 5 or 10 men who survived that battle. You had to be really together. But Krishna, he orchestrated the whole thing. Yes, Pranahari, I was waiting for you to come out of your shell. Give us some nectar.
I have a question to this last pastime you said about Krishna and Arjuna, because it seems to be another perennial question that comes up about Krishna consciousness. Like, for instance, one devotee once asked me and others, we were discussing the point that if for instance, if I'm distributing books, sometimes it's so intense, I'm not thinking of Krishna, but I'm just thinking of how to distribute the books. And then, I distribute all the books, and then when it's done, then I think of Krishna. I do something, read the Bhagavatam or something like this. But they were asking, the question is like, is that right? Because we also understand that, like in Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda, the gopis, they're always thinking of Krishna throughout their daily activities. So I guess that's the question is...
That's how you get there. Why are you out there distributing the books?
In order to think of Krishna
Because
always.
Prabhupada asked us to. When Narada Muni cursed Nalakuvara and Manigriva when they didn't cover themselves when they were naked and he walked by, they were so intoxicated they didn't even bother to cover themselves. Then Narada looked at him and said, you're the sons of Kuvera and you're acting like this, in front of me? Okay, you're so eager to be naked. Okay, you can take birth as trees. And then they sobered up really quick, and they begged him, please don't. What is our father going to say? We made a little mistake. We're just young kids. Give us a break, And then Narada said, well, unfortunately, the nature of my existence is whatever I say comes true. So it's not that I can take it back, but I can amend it. I'll amend the curse. So you'll take the birth as family in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, will personally deliver you. So then, fast forward, there's Krishna's little baby. He's tied to the grinding mortar. He's pulling this big mortar, as a baby, and it gets stuck between the trees. And then he stops and he pauses. This is actually in the verses. And he says, Narada says, I have to deliver these two, so I have to do it. And then he pulled, and then these huge Arjun trees fell down without touching him, of course. And then they were delivered. So the moral of the story, according to our acharyas, is that if you please, a person who is on the level of Narada and do what he says, then Krishna will arrange everything. So when you're out there distributing the books, even though you're not, in the same way that Arjuna wasn't thinking of Krishna all the time while he was doing that thing, but he was doing it because Krishna asked him to do it. And if we do something that the pure devotees, the acharyas, Lord Chaitanya, and Prabhupada ask us to do, then we will certainly be thinking of Krishna. Even if you're not, literally. There was one devotee in San Francisco, this is a funny story, so he heard that he was always supposed to think of Krishna. So he arranged, when he was chanting japa, he arranged one of these harmonica holders, and he put a picture of Krishna, on the thing. And he would walk around chanting Hare Krishna with this picture of Krishna. There's nothing wrong with looking at a picture of Krishna while you chant. He got a little out of hand, And he would circumambulate, and then he started circumambulating the temple, and then he started circumambulating the block, and he just, the circumference of the circumambulations ended up, he disappeared. He just went. Anyway, I may be exaggerating a little bit, but it was like that. And you couldn't get him to do anything. You couldn't get him to do anything because he was chanting Hare Krishna and thinking of Krishna 24/7, So it's not like that. If you do that, you're not as good as if you're going out and doing books, and you have to concentrate on what you're doing in order to please an ever-liberated soul. And by the pleasure of that ever-liberated soul, you make spiritual advancement. And you know what Prabhupada said also? He said that if at the end of your life you've tried to do that sincerely, at any time in your life, then when it comes time for you to leave the body, Krishna will take you by the hand, even if you're not thinking of him at that moment. There was one time that Prabhupada said, if you just give me your youth and serve me during your youthful years, he said, and put some bricks in this temple, because at that time the Sankirtan was building things in Mayapur, and he said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur will come and take you by the hand, take you back to Godhead. So there are ways that Krishna has to do things that are beyond our conception, beyond our capacity to understand, but they're there in Shastra and they're there in the instructions of our acharyas. And we should never think that these are exaggerations. They're not exaggerations. If you're doing something because, a pure devotee asks you to do it, even if you're not pure, even if you are not qualified, when you're out there doing it, every one of us has experienced this. When you're distributing books, you get this taste. When the person takes a book and gives a donation, you get this taste that's out of this world. There's no material explanation for it. It's beyond anything you've experienced in this material world. That Lord Chaitanya, that Prabhupada said is the embrace of Lord Chaitanya. And if you've even done that just once in your life, even for an instant, you become special. You get human body guaranteed, and you'll be promoted somehow or other. That's called faith, full faith. What to speak if you come to the point of chanting without offense and taking seriously all the rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti, which bring you to bhava bhakti and eventually to prema bhakti. Is that something?
It also reminded me of what Prabhupada, I think Prabhupada has said this about service now, samadhi later.
Yes.
I don't know, is that Prabhupada said that?
Yes.
So
he said service now, samadhi later. He also told Yogesh Chandra, who I was with in San Francisco in '72, and he was one of the leaders of the book distributors. He was one of the first book distributors, and he went around and he organized book distribution in different parts of the world, France and Australia and England. And Prabhupada told him, if you just give me your youth and distribute these books, I'll bless you that you can, at the end of your life, go to Vrindavan and enjoy spiritual life without that intensity. And you can say that Prabhupada might have said these things in order to just inspire us, and are they really, literally true? Well, if they are, if they aren't. Just because a person of that caliber talks like that and says like that, Krishna's there. That's the point. Krishna listens and he fulfills his desires. How else could it happen that Prabhupada came to the material world at that age and did what he did? I can barely walk from here to there. What to speak of? Because I'm, it's inconceivable. The Queen's Council, QC, who judged the public inquiry, whether or not the manor could stay operating in this very wealthy part of the green belt outside of London. There was a big controversy, and the local residents tried to get us out, and finally the Indian community rose up, and it went to the highest levels. In England they're called public inquiry, and the person who's in charge of managing it and deciding is called the Queen's Council, QC they call him. High level of lawyer, and at one point he decided if he was going to actually do this case, he had to read Prabhupada's books. So he was a speed reader. All these guys who do this kind of stuff, they have very special talents. He was a speed reader, and he read through a lot of Prabhupada's books. He came to the Lilamrita, and he read it, and he gave a positive. There was compromise. We had to get another entrance coming from the other side that didn't go through the village and like this, but still we kept the manor. And then at the end there were some older devotees with him, and he said to us, you all can't actually understand what a great thing your spiritual master did. And they all thought, we know, we were surrendered to Prabhupada. And he said, no, because I'm over 70 years old. And so what he did after 70 years old is not humanly possible. He's that great a person. So that's what influenced him, or at least partially influenced him. So again, I come back to the same part. If you're depressed, or if you tend to get too distracted by your mind and lose the taste, or lose the what's the word, the edge, or the bliss, or whatever, just take your mind to the point of gratitude. And you have to do this. You have to train your mind so that you can bring your mind back from nonsense to the reality. That by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya and the Vaishnavas who have worked, for almost a generation now, more than a generation, to spread this movement, And then you will come out of that nonsense and stay fixed in your devotional lives, no matter what the external situations.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, I'm going to stop now. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Wait, something?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
It's by
From cyberspace, we have something.
It's by Katie Romaya.
Oh, Katie Maya. Hare Krishna.
She says,
London.
She says, Maharaj, does Srimad-Bhagavatam or any other scripture mention how long did it take for Saubhari Muni from the time he got married to the time he took the order of Vanaprastha again?
No. At least I'm not aware of it. It may be in some Purana somewhere, but I'm not aware. I've never heard it about the number of years it was. But however long it took, the effect was the same. The effect was there. Okay, thank you so much. Saubhari Muni ki jai, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same station. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.